you can say Sulaiman misunderstood Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Abdul Wahhab was correct. Then you're also saying a large group of Hanbali scholars. My simple point is that don't make a simplistic assumption that Ibn Abdul Wahhab is the same as Ibn Taymiyyah. I have said many times, and maybe one day I'll give a longer lecture, but there's more research that needs to be done. Ibn Taymiyyah was very different than Ibn Abdul Wahhab. There is no correlation between them in terms of the takfir of the masses. And the point being, when you come and you say that the entire ummah is kafir because of my understanding, you're going to have to admit that my understanding is unique, that nobody before me had this understanding. And this is exactly what Ibn Abdul Wahhab says. This is the Saudi publishing of Ad-Durr al-Saniyah. This is the one printed in Riyadh. This is the famous one by Muhammad al-Qasim al-Najdi and others. This is the edition that is the official edition. I'm not getting some edition from somewhere else. And volume 10, page 51. And they don't teach you this in Medina. They do not teach you these things in Medina. What they teach you is a selection that is, as I said, a romanticized third wave da'wah. And Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab says, okay, literally, you can see min Muhammad, you cannot see, sorry, but min Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab ila man yasilu ilayhi hadha al-kitab. This is from Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab to anybody whom this book reaches. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, etc. Then he goes, wa ana ukhbirukum an nafsi. Let me tell you about myself. Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illa hu. That I swear by Allah, laqad talabtu al-ilma. I studied knowledge and وأعتقد من عرفني أن لي معرفة. And I'm pretty sure that those who know me, they know that I have knowledge. And from that time frame, when I was learning my studies, لا أعرف معنى لا إله إلا الله ولا أعرف دين الإسلام قبل هذا الخير الذي من الله به وكذلك مشايخي ما منهم رجل عرف ذلك. Okay, I need you to understand this. Okay, he is saying that لا أعرف معنى لا إله إلا الله. I did not know the meaning of La ilaha illallah until Allah blessed me with this knowledge of Islam. And none of my scholars knew the meaning of La ilaha illallah. ما منهم رجل عرف ذلك. Okay? Ibn Abdul Wahhab is admitting that he is the first person in human history to bring forth the type of theology that he is bringing forth. He has to do that because he can't quote the people that are necessary to be quoted. And so he is saying none of my teachers understood. Now, by the way, he studied with his own father. He studied with Hanbali scholars of Najd. He studied with ulama in Basra and Iraq. He studied with scholars of Medina who were very well-known scholars of Medina. The Qurani school, I go over this in more detail. And so he's basically saying, I'm the first person coming and saying these types of things. And that's why you need to understand, he considered the entire world to be mushrik and kafir except for his followers. Now, the problem comes that the Najdi Da'wah spoon feeds you certain phrases. And I did the same in my book, Kashf al-Shubuhat, in which he says, I don't make takfir of anybody who does this ignorantly. And that's if you go back to my lectures, position 1b. But his actions are all 1a. He literally killed people. And I'll give you some examples today as well. He murdered people. He massacred entire tribes because they disagreed with his interpretation. There was no udhur bil jahl. And he considered Mecca and Medina to be pagan, mushrik territories. Imagine Mecca and Medina. And there are too many examples for this. For example, in the famous the history, Unwan al-Majd, volume 1, page 261, there is a letter preserved from Saud ibn Abdul Aziz, the founder of the kingdom, right? The Saudi kingdom. This is why it's called Saud ibn Abdul Aziz, al-Saud, right? This is the Saud ibn Abdul Aziz, to all of the people, ila kafati ahli Makkah, to all of the people of Mecca, and the aghawat, and the Qadi of the Sultan. This is now the official Sultan, the Qadi of the Sultan of the Ottomans in Mecca, right? He's writing a letter. This is, no, so Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab did not conquer Mecca in his lifetime. He did not conquer Mecca. They conquered Najd in his lifetime. As soon as he passed away, within a few years, the first Saudi state attacked Mecca and conquered Mecca for the Saudi territory, okay? This is the letter that was written, I think, 3 years after the death of Ibn Abdul Wahhab by the very people who studied with him, right? These aren't some, 1,000 years later. This is his students. This is his sons and grandsons. This is his batch that was with him. They write a letter to the people of Mecca. That letter is preserved. What is that letter? From Saud ibn Abdul Aziz to the people of Mecca and the ulama and the aghawat, which is the Turkish term that they had over there, and the Qadi of the Sultan. Salamu ala man ittaba al-huda. Not even assalamu alaikum. Salamu ala man ittaba al-huda. And then he says that you are the neighbors of the house of Allah and you have been protected by the protection of Allah, meaning you are in the Kaaba. That's a big thing there, right? وَإِنَّا لَنَدْعُوكُمْ لِدِينِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And I am now calling you to embrace the religion of Allah and the religion of His Messenger. وَقُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ فَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَقُولُوا اشْهَدُوا بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ. Right? So if you do so, then you are going to be safe, you are going to be safe, you are going to be safe. Follow this, وَأَطِيعُوا مَا أَطَاعَ اللَّهُ and وَالسَّلَامُ. Okay? He is literally saying to them, I am inviting you to embrace the religion of Islam. This is what the Prophet ﷺ wrote to Heraclius in Rome, right? تَعَالُوا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ. He's writing this to the Qadi of the Muslims. He's writing this to the ulama of Mecca. And he's saying, enter into the embrace the religion of Islam. If you do so, you will be safe. Can you imagine the arrogance to assume that Mecca is a pagan land and the ulama of Mecca have to embrace Islam, the imams of the Haram have to embrace their religion? This is the logical fanaticism that takes place. This isn't a misinterpretation. This is Ibn Abdul Wahhab's theology. And he surrounded Mecca. There was a siege for many months. The people of Mecca began to die from hunger and starvation. Very sad and tragic, realities. Finally, the Sharif clan was forced to surrender. And the terms of their surrender and the letter that they had to write is preserved in a Durar Asaniya. Okay, this is the famous book, as if you know your Najdi theology. And again, I ask the advanced students to read this and ask yourself, would you like this type of Islam? Do you think this is the religion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Volume 1, page 314. Okay, volume 1, page 314. That after he negotiated the surrender, he forced the ulama of Mecca to agree to this wording. Okay, نشهد نحن علماء مكة الواضعون خطوطنا وأختامنا في هذا الرقم أن هذا الدين الذي قام به الشيخ محمد ابن عبد الوهاب ودعا إليه إمام المسلمين سعود بن عبد العزيز من التوحيد ونفي الشرك الذي ذكره في هذا الكتاب أنه هو الحق الذي لا شك فيه ولا ريب وأن ما وقع في مكة والمدينة سابقا ومصر والشام وغيرهما من البلاد إلى الآن من أنواع الشرك المذكورة في هذا الكتاب أنه الكفر المبيح للدم والمال الموجب للخلود في النار ومن لم يدخل في هذا الدين ويعمل به ويوالي أهله ويعادي أعداءه فهو عندنا كافر بالله واليوم الآخر وواجب على الإمام المسلمين والمسلمين جهاده وقتاله حتى يتوب إلى الله مما هو عليه ويعمل بهذا الدين أشهد بذلك وكتبه الفقير الله تعالى. And then all of the famous ulama, Abdul Malik ibn Abdul Munim al-Qal'i al-Hanafi, the Mufti of Mecca of the Hanafis, and Muhammad ibn Salih ibn Ibrahim, the Mufti of the Shafi'is, and Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, the Mufti of the Malikis, and Muhammad ibn Ahmad, and another Maliki, and Muhammad ibn Yahya, the Mufti of the Hanabila, who was against Ibn Abdul Wahhab, by the way, and Abdul Hafid al-Darwish, and so on and so forth. All of them make this signature. Now, I didn't translate the Arabic. Please, if you don't trust me, go and look at it yourself. They are saying here that all of the undersigned, all of these imams of the Haram and the Muftis of the various madhabs, we testify that what Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is calling to and Saud ibn Abdul Aziz, that is the Tawheed, and it is negation of shirk, and it is the religion of Allah, and it is the haqq, that there is no doubt in it. And that what used to happen in Mecca and in Medina and in Masr and in Syria and in all other lands until now from all types of shirk that are mentioned in these books, meaning the books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and others, that this is all kufr, and it was allowed to kill us, mubih lid-dam, and it was allowed to take our properties, and it would have caused us to be in the fire of hell forever. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَدْخُلْ فِي هَذَا الدِّينِ, whoever doesn't enter into this religion. What is he talking about, this religion? The Muftis of the Hanabila and Shafi'is and Malikis were kuffar, and so the religion of Ibn Abdul Wahhab is this religion, and so they're entering into the religion. Again, guys, wallahi, your heart, yani, it really hurts, wallahi. Yani, the humiliation that must have happened. These are people that are starving to death. They're going to be killed if they don't accept it. And Ibn Abdul Wahhab enters Mecca with his army. Sorry, not Ibn Abdul Wahhab, sorry, he had passed away. His army, the first Saudi state, the people that's associated with him, they're the ones who conquered Mecca. Again, don't quote me, is it 1803, 1804? I mean, a few years after he passed away. Don't quote me on that, you can look it up. But Mecca was conquered just after the death of Ibn Abdul Wahhab by the first Saudi state. Saudi ibn Abdul Aziz conquered Mecca. And they're forcing the imams and the muftis to sign that we used to be kuffar, and we've accepted Islam. We repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. We confess that our properties were halal, our lives were halal. When you attacked us, you didn't do any wrong. You had the right to attack us, because obviously the accusation was you shouldn't have attacked us, we're Muslims. And they were forced to confess that we were halal ad-dam until we accepted this deen. And the people of Mecca and Medina were all kuffar until they embraced this deen. You see, this is the problem of the fanaticism. And the same goes as well, the ruler of Mecca, that's the next page, if you turn the next page here, that the Sharif al-Ghalib was his name, the ruler of Mecca, was also forced, the Sharif family, the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ, they were forced to admit that, pretty much same language here, that we were not Muslims, we're not embracing the religion of Islam. What used to happen was all types of shirk, and now we accept this religion. وَمَنْ خَالَفَ مَا فِي هَذَا الْكِتَابِ مِنْ أَهْلِ مَصْرٍ وَالشَّامِ وَالْعِرَاقِ وَكُلُّ مَنْ كَانَ عَلَى دِينِهِمْ الَّذِي هُمْ عَلَيْهِ الْآنِ فَهُوَ كَافِرٌ مُشْرِكٌ. This is what they forced the Ghalib Sharif to sign, I think the 34th descendant of the Prophet ﷺ. Not that the lineage automatically makes you a better person, but wallahi it hurts. Wallahi, it hurts. Yani. This is a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, directly, from the lineage of Ali and Hassan radiallahu anhu. And you're going to come along and you're going to say that he was and the ruler of Mecca, his family ruled Mecca for hundreds of years and thousands, really. And now you're going to say that, they were halal ad-dam, they were outside the fold of Islam until Ibn Abdul Wahhab came along and, taught them Tawheed. And then he is forced to confess that the people who disagree with this teaching from the people of Masr and Sham and Iraq, and whoever is following their religion that they are upon now, is a kafir and mushrik. What is their religion? The people of Sham and Iraq, they are the Ottoman Empire, right? What is their religion? Their religion, according to them, is simply outside the fold of Islam. And that's really, again, it is a necessary fanaticism when you come to this notion that these types of practices, that the max that you should say they're haram, and I say it is haram, and don't do it, and avoid it. But when you start tinkering with the definitions of Tawheed, this is the repercussions that happen. The entire Ottoman Empire becomes like the Crusaders, like a pagan mushrik empire. And this is something that is explicitly clear. Ibn Abdul Wahhab's followers explicitly, without a doubt, made takfir of the entire Ottoman Empire. And in fact, there are many places. Look at volume 9, page 291. Volume 9, page 291. فَمَنْ لَمْ يُكَفِّرِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ مِنَ الدَّوْلَةِ التُّرْكِيَّةِ وَعُبَّادَ الْقُبُورِ كَأَهْلِ مَكَّةَ وَغَيْرِهِمْ. That فَهُوَ كَافِرٌ مِثْلُهُم. Whoever does not make takfir of the pagans like the Ottoman Empire, and like those who worship the graves, and like the people of Mecca, is a kafir like them. Listen, if you think that the Ottomans are not kafir, you're a kafir. right? If you think that the people of Mecca are not kafir, you're a kafir. This is coming straight from the first generation, the people who studied with, by the way, this particular treatise, volume 9, page 291, it might be from Ibn Abdul Wahhab or it might be from his students. There's a bit of a, discussion there, but even if it's from his students, this is what is being taught. And there are so many instances of this, but one of the most explicit and clear-cut manifestations of the fanaticism of this theology is the assassination that Ibn Abdul Wahhab directly commandeered. The assassination that he commandeered against his one-time ally before Ibn Saud, before this particular tribe. There was another tribe, and his name was Ibn Mu'ammar, the leader of the person. That Ibn Mu'ammar was the first person to give him protection. And after a while, Ibn Mu'ammar just began to doubt and didn't realize this seems too fanatic and whatnot. And so Ibn Abdul Wahhab took refuge with Ibn Saud, right? And Ibn Mu'ammar was still the leader of his tribe. Now, what was the cause of Ibn Mu'ammar's doubts and whatnot? Ibn Afaliq, the greatest Hanbali scholar alive at the time, and of the tradition of Al-Ahsa, which is a totally different tradition. Ibn Afaliq wrote a treatise. I should have brought it down. It's actually behind me over there. He has a treatise. It's online. You can all find all of this stuff online here. Ibn Afaliq wrote a treatise in which he refuted Najdi theology. He criticized Ibn Abdul Wahhab as being a takfiri fanatic, and he started writing letters to Ibn Mu'ammar. Ibn Mu'ammar begins to change his ideas and start doubting what is going on. And this doubting, vacillating between Ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Afaliq was enough to consider him to be murtad. And so Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and the details are in the books, and this is the irony, these details are not found in the books of the enemies. They're found in the first Najdi historians that are writing as praise. They're writing from within the tradition. Tarikh Najd and others, if you look up page 103 of the Tarikh Najd and whatnot, they mention this with glowing praise. This isn't something that is embarrassed. They embrace it because it is a logical manifestation of their theology. What did Ibn Abdul Wahhab do? He found some people from within the tribe that didn't like him, and he basically said it is obligatory on you if you love Allah and His Messenger. He emotionally blackmailed them, right? He literally told them, if you understand Tawheed, then your leader is a mushrik murtad, and he needs to be executed, okay? And they felt, okay, well, the Shaykh is saying it, okay? And so, this is unbelievable. In Rajab of 1163 Hijrah, that group of renegades, okay, they stalked and they attacked Ibn Mu'ammar after Salat al-Jumu'ah, and they executed him in the masjid after Salat al-Jumu'ah, believing that he is a pagan mushrik murtad. And the books of Najdi history revel and embrace and praise that they killed the murtad, and they, the deen Allah Azza wa Jal was, helped and whatnot. And see, here's the point. The assassination of Ibn Mu'ammar wasn't like a political thing that, you don't like a journalist and you chop him up in an embassy. I mean, that's something that politicians do, and they have to answer to Allah Azza wa Jal, and they will have to face Allah's wrath on that day. This isn't one of those things. This is a scholar giving a fatwa that a person is a murtad and should be executed for theology, for heresy, right? And this is because it's not that Ibn Mu'ammar himself went to a grave. It's not that he's invoking the dead. It's not that he's justifying. Ibn Mu'ammar is thinking that maybe Ibn Abdul Wahhab is too fanatic. It's too, off the spectrum. And to prove that point, Ibn Abdul Wahhab responds with basically executing and killing Ibn Mu'ammar. And therefore the point is that, you need to, and this is, again, so back to live in my personal story, is that one of the main causes that really just bothered me was that what are you going to do when you say that this is shirk and kufr, and the bulk of the ummah doesn't agree with you? There's going to be a sense of isolationism and a sense of hatred, not even hatred, but a sense of like, okay, all of you guys are dal and mudil, and that's just dangerous for the ummah. Even those that don't make requests to those of the qabr, they don't think it's shirk. And that notion, for those who think it is shirk, is not acceptable. So there's no way around it. The repercussions of this theology are quite dangerous. And we see those repercussions. And like I said, with the rise of ISIS, I understood that if you understand early Najdi history, you see the same fanaticism, the religious zeal that is in them, you see that over there. And I realized that something is not right here. Either this is the religion of Allah Azza wa Jalla, in which case, okay, we're going to have to figure out what to do with this, or else I have it wrong. And as I said, the main catalyst for me was to see that level of fanaticism and to recognize that this is not something that I'm comfortable with, right? I'm not comfortable with considering Mecca and Medina to be pagan lands. I'm not comfortable with considering the Ottoman Empire to be dawla mushrika, and whoever doubts that himself becomes a kafir. And the reality is that even if you add the udhr bil jahl, you're saying that essentially they are kafir, the actions, and that's dangerous. And not to get personal here, but if you look at the viciousness, of even the fatwa or the video that I gave, right, about, well, it's haram and stepping stone to kufr. Look at the viciousness of the reactions of the people online. And I am saying something that is the position of the majority. This is the position of Deoband, the official position of Deoband. This is the position of Dar al-Ifta of Al-Azhar. This is the position of the scholars of Morocco, of Syria, of Sham. And I said it is haram and it is munkar and it is bid'ah. But see, Najdi theology teaches that it is shirk. And there's nothing worse than shirk. And so the fact that I've said it's haram and not shirk, right? Subhanallah, I've had takfir done of me, by ISIS. But generally speaking, for the previous quote-unquote controversial views that I felt, the Najdi da'wah has not made takfir of me. I understand my position of Ya'juj and Ma'juj is a minority position. I'm not a jahil to not. Of course, it's a minority position. I know. I understand. Have other views that some might find problematic. But generally speaking, they haven't made takfir of me for these views. But after this video, I got I have an admin, that deals with them, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and the admin's telling me, like, you're getting threats of execution. The phrase zandaqa is used multiple times, and you guys are heretic now. And one guy posted, on Facebook or something, that if we lived in an Islamic state, Yasir Qadhi would have been executed by now. Okay, now we can dismiss this as that of a fanatic jahil. but we see what happens when those fanatic jahils are given power like ISIS, right? We can dismiss this, and by the way, I'm saying we can dismiss this. I don't want to mention names. I still love my teachers immensely. But we know for a fact that some of the most beloved and respected icons of the Najdi Da'wah of our times, people that I have met, muftis, and let's not say any more than that, requested the kings of their times to execute people that disagreed with their fatwas. This is in the 90s. This isn't back in 1700. This is in the 90s. This is when I was studying and whatnot. They considered some of the icons. So no problem to mention the names of the other side. Muhammad Ali al-Maliki, Allah yarhamu. And I also made statements about him as a Najdi that I regret. And I still don't agree completely with that theology. May Allah give him Jannah. He has a position, he has salaf that he said this, but I don't agree with it. But he's not an evil person. He's not a dal mudil for saying these things, right? He is following a tradition, and I'm following another tradition. And I agree with Ibn Taymiyyah ibn al-Qayyim that these things should be avoided. I agree that they're not something that we should encourage, and they're a stepping stone to deviancy. But to claim that they're more than this, that anybody who practices this is shirk, you're going to get to this notion of petitioning the king. King Fahd gets a petition from one of, no, not one of the, I don't want to say too much. I love these people. I love them. Even if they are mistaken, they are sincere, inshallah ta'ala. And it was my emotional attachment to my teachers and to the great icons of this movement. It was my emotional attachment to some of my teachers and some of the great mentors that delayed my departure. Just because in your heart you're like, come on, I love these people. And they're good people. But you see, you can be good and still have a mistaken theology and ideology, right? So the point is, they actually asked King Fahd to execute one of the most prestigious scholarly, people of a strand of Islam. You see, Muhammad Ali al-Maliki, Allah yarhamu, he represents pre-Najdi scholarship. He's following that line. You can imagine the people that Ibn Saud is forcing to confess their kuffar and murtad. That's Ali al-Maliki's branch. That's basically, they're going back, because obviously that interpretation of Islam, it became underground, but it was preserved. Ali al-Maliki, for a while taught halaqas in the haram, then he was banned. He continued privately and whatnot, and and of course there are many people. I met many of them myself. I didn't study with them because at the time I was Najdi, but I met them and I knew. You knew who they were. You knew their scholars. You knew they're teaching private halaqat, but I never attended because obviously I was not of that understanding. But the point being that we can dismiss this level of fanaticism as being from ignorant, juhal. Oh, Yasir Qadhi should be executed, he's a zindiq. I mean, but the point is, it's a natural corollary to what they're being taught, right? It's not an aberration. If you're going to say that this is shirk, then the natural repercussion is the bulk of the ummah is condoning shirk. And if that's how you're going to define it, then 90% of the ummah is basically, and so here's the main issue for me that really troubled me. The inevitable conclusion of this methodology is that you prioritize refuting other Muslims. You prioritize problematizing religious folks that disagree with your interpretation, because for you that's shirk and for you that's kufr, and you turn a blind eye to the 95% of the ummah who doesn't care less about your internal disputes between the religious folks, and they're not even on any wavelength to study Islam, and they're far away from the deen, and the bulk of your efforts, the thrust of your da'wah and whatnot, it becomes refuting other religious folks, people that want to come close to Allah and His Messenger, and because you think that these are very important things, and I haven't even begun, and we're not going to do that today, but I have another lecture. So the modern Salafi da'wah, its two key points are its interpretation of Tawheed and its interpretation of bid'ah. Okay, its interpretation